this lesson, we'll discuss how to select elements inside of your Revit project. One of the simplest ways to select elements is to simply click on them. For example, if I wanted to click the diffuser in the upper left, that's the square with the X in it, simply move your mouse over it and click the left mouse button. This will select that actual element, in this case the diffuser. It turns blue. You see dimensions, and the elements and properties for that diffuser show up in the properties area on the left. To deselect that, simply click in the background in the white area, or click Modify on the ribbon in the upper left. Now you can select multiple things by holding the Control key down. For example, if I wanted to click the two diffusers on the top, I can move my mouse over the one on the left click, hold the Control key down, move my mouse over the one on the right, left click it. And both are selected. And you can continue on, selecting by holding the Control key and picking multiple items. Go ahead and clear the selection. Click in the background or click the Modify key. Now another way to select elements is by dragging a window. Now depending on the direction you drag the window, you may be able to select whatever the window crosses or surrounds, or only what the window surrounds. For example, if you move your mouse in between the four diffusers and hold the left mouse button down and start to drag your mouse to the right and up, you're going to notice the window that you're creating is a solid line. If you move back to the left, you'll notice the window changes to a dashed line. The solid window is called a selection window, and it will only select what it surrounds. So for example, if you move the window to the right and you don't totally surround the diffuser, it won't select. But as soon as you totally surround it, it does select. So let's go ahead and select that. Just drag your mouse to the right, totally surround the diffuser, and then release the left mouse button. That item is selected. Go ahead and clear your selection. You can hit the Escape key to clear your selection as well. Now, let's drag another window to select the other way. So again, in the middle of the actual diffusers, hold the left mouse button down, start to move your mouse to the left. And what you'll notice is this window is dashed. So this is what's called a crossing window, meaning it will select whatever it crosses or whatever it surrounds. So as you can see, as soon as it crosses over that diffuser, it selects it. And as soon as you release the mouse button, it will select that actual diffuser. Now you can select a multitude of things as well, not just one. So I could drag a window around all of the diffusers, or just two, or just one. So clicking and dragging a window are two methods of how to select various elements within the Revit view. But let's say you have a lot of elements here, a lot of visual components, and you can't really drag that window around all of them to select them. Another way to select all of those diffusers in the view is by using all instances or selection from the dropdown. So let's select the diffuser in the upper left first in any of the methods we discussed. I'm just going to go ahead and left click on mine. Now with that diffuser selected, what I would like to do is select all of the other like diffusers in this view. And the way to do that is to right click your mouse, hover over Select All Instances, and then you have two options. Select all instances of whatever you have currently selected in this view or in the entire project. Well, in this example, I just want to do visible in this view. So I'll select it, and what will happen is all of those diffusers in my current view are selected. Now, if you did the other one in the entire project, that means it would select all of the diffusers in the entire project. So wherever they showed up, meaning on the first floor, the second floor, additional buildings, whatever you have in that Revit project. You may want to be able to do that if you had to change that diffuser and you wanted to change it to a different type throughout the entire project. Go ahead and left click to deselect. And one other method to make a selection is to select what you previously selected. Without anything selected, you can right click your mouse and then choose Select Previous. This will select whatever you previously selected in whatever manner you did. Go ahead and clear your screen just by clicking in the white area. So as a review, we looked at some basic fundamentals of how to select objects, components, different things in your Revit project. One is we just click on them with the left mouse button. Another method is we drag a window either to the right or to the left, one being a crossing window, one being a selection window. We also select something and then right-click and choose all instances in the view or in the entire project. And the last method we looked at was selecting previous elements. In this lesson, we'll discuss selecting elements and then using filters to deselect some of the elements you select. So let's say you select a bunch of elements on your screen by using one of the window selection techniques. And you window in a variety of things, and some of what you window in you technically don't want. So can you filter out some of those elements? And the answer is yes. So we're going to use this view on my screen as the example. Right now, inside of the walls, I see 4 diffusers on the left and a piece of mechanical equipment on the right. Let's go ahead and select all 5 of those elements using the window selection technique. I'm going to hold my mouse on the left and then just drag to the actual left of everything, selecting all of those different elements. Now, with all of them selected, I can see 5 are now blue on my screen, and in the properties area on the left, it does say 5 are selected, and of those 5, they belong to multiple categories. So now, how do I deselect the mechanical equipment on the right? Well, to do that, I'll look at filters. On my ribbon, all the way to the right, is now a filter button. If you click filter, it will display all the category elements that are currently selected. I see the air terminals, and there's 4 of those, and the mechanical equipment, and there's 1. Well, in this example, I don't want the mechanical equipment. So what I'll do is uncheck mark it. Go ahead and uncheck mark mechanical equipment, click apply, and now what you'll see on your screen is it actually removes that mechanical equipment from the selection set, and then click OK. Let's say this is a selection set that you would want to use over and over and over again. Well, you can save it. All the way to the right on your ribbon, to the right of filter, is a save button. So if you go up and click save, it'll now ask you, what do you want to name this selection set? And I'll call it, for this example, just 4 diffusers. You can call it whatever you want in your example, and I'll just call mine 4 diffusers. And click OK. Now it saves that selection set, and you now see you have a load button to load that. Let's go ahead and clear the selection by clicking in the background or clicking modify or the escape key. Now you may ask yourself, well, how do I load that selection set back in if I don't see the load button? Well, that load button is on the Manage tab in your ribbon. So if you move your mouse all the way to the right, you'll see Manage. Click on Manage, and then in the selection panel, the middle icon is Load Selection. When you select that, it will display all of the various filters, depending upon where you're at, that you can actually use to filter out criteria within this view or a different part of your Revit project. So I'll select the 4 diffusers we just created, click OK, and it now selects those 4 elements because it remembered what we actually did. Now, if you need to make an edit to this selection filter, you have the Edit button on the ribbon all the way to the right. You can go up and click Edit, and now it will display all of those filters that you currently have selected or created, and you can choose which one you want to edit. So I could select 4 diffusers. I can click Edit, and now I can come in and start to add or remove elements from my selection. So if I wanted to remove an element, I could select something, let's say this diffuser on the right, choose Remove from Selection, and now I removed it from the selection set. To save that, green check mark, Finish Selection, and then click OK. Now, go back to the Manage tab, go to the Selection panel, click Load Selection, select 4 diffusers again, and click OK. What you'll notice now, because we removed that one element, it only selects 3 diffusers. So you can see you can filter out on the fly as you're selecting things, or you can actually create selection filters. In this lesson, we looked at selecting elements and how to filter out things that we don't want in that current selection. We also looked at how do we save these custom selection sets, how do we load them again, and then how do we edit them. In this lesson, we'll look at the use of the Tab key to select various elements in your Revit model. Now, looking at your Revit model right now, Let's say I wanted to select the floor or the ceiling or all four walls. As you move your mouse over the model, you notice that it'll highlight the walls, but you can't necessarily highlight the floor or beams or all the walls. So how do you go about selecting those various elements in this view? Well, one method is to use the tab key. For example, if you move over one of the walls and the wall highlights, in the lower left part of the Revit window, it'll display what you're currently highlighting. And on my screen, I can see it says Walls, Basic Wall, Generic 8. If I hit the tab key once, it chooses the entire chain of walls. If I hit the tab key again, it's saying it's selecting the floor, generic 12-inch. Hit the tab key again, now it's allowing me to select the beams. Hit the tab key again, and I'm back to the very beginning. So utilizing the tab key in a given area will allow you to cycle through the various components or elements in that given area. In this case, it's allowing me to cycle through one wall, all the walls in the chain, a floor because of the floor boundary, and beams because of the beam boundary. If you move over one of the diffusers and hit the tab key, what you'll notice is it cycles through from just picking one diffuser to the entire duct system to another level of the duct system and then back to the diffuser. So using the tab key is another method to allow you to select multiple things based on wherever your mouse is at the time you use or hit the tab key. In this lesson, we'll cover moving and copying. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to actually use the move command. Now, you can select something first, then start the move command. Or you can start the move command first, then select whatever you want to move. What I'll do for the first example is select something first. So I'm going to pick one of the diffusers on your screen. And the diffuser is actually the square with an X through it. Then once I select it, it becomes highlighted. You see dimensions for where it's placed and the properties display for that element on the left in the property area. Now to invoke or start the move command, in the middle of your ribbon, on the modify panel, I'll select move. Once you select that, Revit is now asking you to pick a base point to start your measurement from, so you know how far you're moving and in what direction. Typically, I like to choose center point or an end point of whatever object it is I'm moving, but it doesn't have to be that way. So in this example here, I'm going to select the midpoint. After you select that, once you start to move your mouse, you actually see a distance showing you how far away from that point this object is being moved. If you're moving on an angle, you'll see an angular dimension too as well, from horizontal or vertical, depending on the orientation as you pull. Now you could constrain this by choosing the constrain button on the options bar, meaning it will only be vertical or horizontal. Or again, unconstrain it. Now you can key in a numeric distance too, if you couldn't choose or it doesn't display the distance you want as you drag. In this case here, if I just want this to go 7 feet, I'll drag my mouse to its 7 feet, and then I'll left click again, and it places it 7 feet. Now to undo anything you did, say you didn't want to move it there, or you made a mistake when you moved it and accidentally selected something, to undo this, you can simply click the undo button on the quick launch bar at the very top of Revit. In this next example, I'll start the move command first. So go to the Modify tab on the ribbon, and in the Modify panel, choose the move command. Once you do that, Revit is now asking you to select whatever it is that you want to move. So now I'll select the same diffuser again. Now after you do that, you're still in a selection mode. So what Revit needs you to do now is tell it it's done selecting, and then you can actually start the move. So to end the selection, just hit the Enter key. Now Revit is asking you to pick a base point, similar to what we did in the previous example, for where you want to move from. So again, I'll pick the center point of this diffuser. Now I'll start dragging right or left, up or down. Let's say I'm just going to move it to the right 6 feet. So I'll move it over 6 feet, left click, and now it's placed. And I'm going to undo this one again. Now the copy command works very similar to move. The only difference is that it copies, and you can make multiple copies. Just like we did with the move, let's start out by the first example of copy by selecting the element you want to copy first. I'm going to choose this diffuser again. Once I do that, on the ribbon in the Modify panel, I'll select the copy command. Now, if the copy command started, just like with the move command, it's asking me to pick a base point. And like I did with the move command, I'll choose the center of the diffuser, and then I'm going to move my mouse vertically 8 feet, and then left click. And I made a copy. Now you can also make multiple copies. So for this example here, let's start the copy command first. So go to the Modify tab. In the Modify panel, click Copy. And just like the Move command, Revit's asking you now to choose whatever you want to copy. So select the diffuser you just copied. After you're done selecting, hit the Enter key. And now before we pick a base point, on the options bar, click Multiple, because this will allow me to make multiple copies. Now, let's pick our base point. Move back into the center of the actual diffuser, click it, and drag your mouse to the right, let's say 7 feet. Left click to place it, drag to the right of that diffuser, 7 feet. Left click to place it. And you can keep going and going and going, making as many copies as you want until you have the command, simply by clicking the Escape key. And then if I wanted to undo those, I could use the undo arrow. When undoing a multiple copy, it will only undo one at a time. So as I click undo, it doesn't undo everything in that multiple copy command. It does one at a time versus everything. So what we covered in this lesson was how to move objects and how to copy objects. We looked at starting the move command first, and also starting the copy command first, then selecting. And then we also looked at selecting objects first, then starting your commands. And with the copy command, we looked at how to make multiple copies. In this lesson, we'll cover copying and pasting. Copying and pasting inside of Revit works very similar to other applications using the copy and paste technique. To copy and paste inside of Revit, let's first select an object we would like to copy to the clipboard. So I'm going to choose one of the diffusers. That's the square with the X through it. Just go ahead and select one of those. With one of those selected, you'll actually see it highlighted, dimensions will appear, and the properties for that element will display in the property area on the left. Now on your ribbon, all the way to the left, there's a panel called Clipboard. The second icon down is Copy to Clipboard. Go ahead and select that. This copies the element, whatever you had selected, to the Windows clipboard. You can escape to actually clear the selection. Now, at this point, you can continue on to design, build, change a view, and then, let's say at that point, you would like to paste that element you copied. To paste it, you would go to the Modify tab, then back over to the Clipboard panel and click Paste from Clipboard. Once you go to Paste from Clipboard, you'll see the original highlighted if you're in the same view, and it's asking me to actually place this copy now. Very similar to using the copy command. And I can constrain this by choosing the constrain button on the option bar so it's only horizontal or vertical, or I could choose not to constrain this. So let's say I want to copy this 14 feet to the left, even though it's outside of the building. And left click, and I can paste the copy. Now you also can use your keyboard shortcut keys as well. Control-C for copy, Control-V for paste. So for example, I can select the diffuser again, then on my keyboard, hold the Control key down and press the letter C. That copies it to the clipboard. Now hit Escape to clear the selection. Now we can also use Control-V to paste this. And once again, you're pasting from the clipboard. I can choose a different location. Maybe this time here, I'll drag it 9 feet above or vertical from its last position. And then go ahead and left click. Escape to clear your selection. So in this example here, we looked at copying and pasting Revit elements to the clipboard. In this lesson, we'll cover the rotate command. So let's say you place an element inside of Revit, but it's not exactly oriented correctly. You need to rotate it. We'll use the rotate command to spin or revolve the object around a base point. So let's start by selecting an object first. So I'm going to rotate a diffuser. So let's go ahead and select one of the diffusers. That's one of the squares with an X through it. Once you select the diffuser, it's highlighted. You'll see the dimensions for its placement, and the properties box on the left will display the information for that diffuser. Now to start the rotate command, go to the middle of your ribbon, and on the modify panel, click rotate. Now what displays right now is the base point or center point of the object that you're rotating. By default, it joins or it snaps it to its center point. If you move your mouse around that, you're going to see a line extend from it. It's asking you now to place this line so you can measure in degrees, one direction or another, how far you want to rotate. So for example, I'm just going to drag until my mouse holds the line vertically, then left click. After you left click, it places that line, and then it pulls a reference line showing an angle from the previous line. This is now how far you're going to rotate and in the direction you're going, counterclockwise or clockwise. So let's move the mouse in a clockwise fashion until you see 45 degrees, or you could key in whatever angle you want. Once you see the angle, such as 45 degrees, go ahead and left click. After you do that, it rotates your object 45 degrees about the base point. Now, let's say you didn't want to rotate it about the base point. You wanted to rotate it about an end or some other point. You can actually drag that base point, that little circle, to a different position. To illustrate that, let's start the rotate command again. This time, let's actually start the rotate command first. So on the ribbon, go to the Modify tab, then go to the Modify panel, and click Rotate. Once you do that, Revit is asking for you to select whatever you want to rotate. Let's go ahead and select one of the other diffusers. Now, once it's selected, it's highlighted in blue. Revit is basically saying now you want to select anything else. If you don't, you need to tell it that you're ready to rotate. So I'm ready to rotate, so let's just go ahead and hit the Enter key. Now, I see the base point right in the middle, and I see my line pulled out from the base point. If you want to move that actual base point in the middle, move your mouse over it, hold the left mouse button down, then simply drag it to a new location. I'm going to drag it to the lower left corner, and then release. Now you actually see that is the center of rotation. And once again, it's asking me to place my initial angle line. I'm just going to pull it left so it's horizontal, and left click, and now I can start to rotate either clockwise or counterclockwise. Let's go counterclockwise 45 degrees. Left click again to place it. And now the object rotates 45 degrees about the base point, which we moved from the origin. Now you can undo these just like we undid along the previous commands. So to undo, go to the quick launch bar at the very top of Revit, click undo, and it will undo in sequence the last two steps we did. So in summary, what we covered in this lesson was rotate, starting the rotate command by first selecting an object or selecting rotate. We also looked at moving the base point from the center of the object, where it's placed by default, to a different location on the object. In this lesson, we'll cover the mirror command. The mirror command works very similar to the copy command, except it makes a replica or flips the object about a mirror line or a mirror plane. Similar to when you look at yourself in a mirror. You see yourself, but you're almost flipped around looking back at you in the other direction. Same scenario with the mirror command in Revit. Let's start by first selecting something, and then we'll start the mirror command. So what we're going to mirror is the mechanical equipment component on the right side of your space, and we're going to mirror it about the center of the wall on the right. So let's select the mechanical equipment first. Just move your mouse over it, left click on it, and it will turn highlighted. You'll see a variety of control points that appear, along with dimensions, and the properties box on the left displays information for this mechanical equipment. Now, on the ribbon in the middle of your screen, or the middle of the ribbon, on the Modify panel, there are two mirror commands, one for mirror pick axis and one for mirror draw axis. In the first example, let's just choose the mirror pick axis. Now what it's asking me to do now is pick an existing line or plane that we can use as an axis. Now that can be anything. The end of a wall, the middle of a wall, part of an object. For this example here, I want you to move to the middle of the wall on the right. You'll see a dashed line appear. That's going to be our imaginary mirror line. Go ahead and select it by clicking your left mouse button. And once you do, that mechanical equipment will be mirrored about that line. And as you can see, it's just like you would be looking into a mirror in your bathroom, say, for example, where you see yourself looking back at you. So this mechanical equipment was copied to the other side of the wall and somewhat flipped or reoriented back, or mirrored, if you will, about that center line within the wall. Now let's undo this. So to undo this, just go to the quick launch bar all the way to the top left of Revit and click undo. Now this next example, we'll use the other mirror command. Now let's start the command first. So on the ribbon, go to the Modify tab, then go to the Modify panel, and then select Mirror Draw Axis. First thing Revit's going to want you to do is to pick whatever you want to mirror. So in this case, let's select the mechanical equipment again. It's not highlighted. Revit is still actually asking you if you want to select anything else. In this case, no. So let's go ahead and hit the Enter key so we get to the next part of the command. Now Revit is saying, well, since you said you're going to draw a mirror line or axis, it wants you to pick 2 points. I'm just going to draw 2 points horizontally above the actual object that I'm mirroring. So I'm just going to go to the left of it. Doesn't matter where in this example. Just click, and then start to drag your mouse to the right. What you're making is an imaginary mirror plane or mirror line. This object, in this case, this mechanical equipment, is going to be mirrored about this. So you click the point on the left, then you drag your mouse to the right. Simply click your left mouse button again to end the mirror line. And what it will do now is mirror that object about that mirror line you just drew. And as you can see, it's mirrored in the opposite orientation. So in this lesson, we looked at mirroring objects, starting by selecting an object first, then choosing your mirror tool. We also looked at starting the mirror tool first, then selecting an object. We also looked at the 2 types of mirrors, picking a mirror line from something that already exists, let's say an edge or the center of a wall, or creating a mirror line by picking 2 points, defining that mirror line wherever you like. In this lesson, we'll cover linear arrays. Let's say you're laying out your space and you're adding in diffusers, and you want to create a lot of diffusers in a linear line. 1, you could place them one at a time, or 2, you could use the copy command and copy them as many times as you want, or 3, you can use the array command and array those in a line. The difference between copying and arraying is you can actually group these together and associate them to the original in the array command. Let's look at one of these diffusers and array it in a horizontal line. To start, go ahead and select the diffuser on the right. The diffuser is the square with the X in it. Once you select it, it turns blue, highlighted, dimensions appear for its location, and the properties panel on the left displays the information for the diffuser. Now the array command is in the middle of the ribbon on the Modify panel. Go ahead and click Array. Now when the array command starts, on the options bar, you have 2 types of array, linear and radial. For this example, make sure the linear button is pressed. Now group and associate means how many items you create in this array will be grouped together. And you can also change that total number of items within the group. Number is how many items you want to be in this array. Let's change it to 4. Move to, you have 2 options, second and last. This means the spacing. So when it says move to second, that means you're going to define the spacing between the first element and the second element. And then all subsequent elements will have the same spacing. If you choose last, you're defining the spacing from the first element to the last element in the array. In this case, it would be from the first element to the 4th element, since we have 4 items. And constraint means horizontal or vertical, not any random angle. So let's leave it set at second. So now Revit wants us to choose a base point to start to measure from. And typically I'm going to select the center of my object. I'm going to choose right in the center of my diffuser. Once I select that, as you start to drag your mouse, you see a dimension appear. This will be the dimension from the first item to the second item. That's what we just selected on the options bar. All subsequent items will have the same spacing. So I'm going to drag my mouse to the right until I see 4 feet. Once I see 4 feet, left-click your mouse. Once you do that, you define the spacing between the first and the second element, and again, all subsequent elements have the same spacing. Now, Revit's asking you now, are you sure you want 4 items, or do you want to add maybe a 5th item or 6th item, or change the number to something else? So just to illustrate this, you could key in number 5 or 5 and hit the Enter key. Then it'll actually add a 5th element in the array. Go ahead and click anywhere in the white space. That will deselect anything that's selected. Now, since we did check the checkbox to group these and associate them, if you select any element within the array, go ahead and pick one of the diffusers. You'll actually see the number appear of the items in the array. If you want to change it, simply click the number, change the number that you would like in the array now. Let's say I want 4, hit the Enter key, and it updates to 4. You also have on the options bar Activate Dimensions. If you click that, this is where you can change the dimensions of where the array is placed. Go ahead and click anywhere in the white space to deselect. If you select again any element within the array, you see they're grouped together. You can ungroup these so they're all individual items, and to do that, on the ribbon all the way at the top to the right, you can select Ungroup. This would ungroup all of the elements in the array, so now they're all individual. For example, now if I click on one of the elements in the array, none of the other elements are highlighted. So I basically broke the relationship between them in the array. Let's do another array. This time we'll define the end distance or the last. In this example, let's start the array command first. So go to the Modify tab on the ribbon, then go to the Modify panel, and then select Array. Once you've selected the array command, Revit is asking you now, please pick what you would like to array. So in this case, let's select the diffuser on the lower right. Once you pick it, it turns highlighted, or a different shade of color, in this case blue. And Revit's still asking you if you want to pick something else. In this case, I'm done selecting, so I need to tell Revit, let's go to the array command. So hit the Enter key. Now we're at the array command. Now on the options bar, let's verify the linear array button is selected. Leave group and associate checkmark. Change the number from 2 to 4. And select last for move 2. Because what we're going to do now is define the distance from the first element to the 4th element, or the last element, since we have 4 in this array. So now Revit wants us to pick a base point to start measuring from. You want to move into the center of this actual diffuser. Go ahead and left-click it. Start to drag your mouse. Now you're defining the distance from the first element to the last element. Now I'm going to drag all the way over almost to the wall on the right, 15 feet. Once you see 15 feet, go ahead and left-click. What it will do then is it will space all of the other items in between the first and the last element I just selected. And once again, it's asking me to choose or enter in the number of items that I want in the array, in this case 4. Go ahead and hit the Enter key. And then click anywhere in the white space in the background to deselect the array. And just like the previous array, you can ungroup these, or you can change the number of elements in the array simply by selecting one of those elements, and then changing the number of items in the array to another number, such as 3, and hit the Enter key and those update. But what you see happens in this manner is what changes are the elements between the first and the last. The last doesn't move because the spacing is set from the first to the last. Go ahead and click anywhere in the background to deselect. So in this example, we looked at linear array. And we looked at 2 different methods. One, select an object first, then create the array, or start the array command, then select your objects. We also looked at the distance when placing objects in an array, setting the distance from the first element to the second element, and then all subsequent items have the same distance. Or we looked at setting the distance from the first element to the last element, and then all of the other elements are spaced in between.